Good morning, KKH, Stephen, Calmo, Jared, Bookish.
Ooh, YouTube's looking hot today too.
Hey, Rick.
Good morning.
CR Fletcher. All the usuals are here. JWJB, Jean,
How's YouTube look?
JV.
Everyone looking good.
YouTube has
Kathy,
names
Cici
I can't even
Cushing,
pronounce.
Craig, Alicia, Goose.
Bookish.
How did everybody
morning.
sleep last night? Good?
Slept
I
great.
hope. Oh, be quiet, Owen.
You slept well, Owen.
So jealous. All right, you guys, I think we're all in here, right? Okay, so today's simultaneous sip. First of all, welcome to the Scott Adams School. I just want to say this was Coffee with Scott Adams. It was Scott Adams' channel, all of his amazing, beautiful content. And now, as Scott had requested, we are the Scott Adams School. It's just a fun, casual place to commune, to sip together, to talk about ideas, have some maybe reframe lessons and micro lessons, and talk about the news sometimes. And we could never replace Scott. We could never say what he might say or how he would think about it. But this is what Scott wanted. And because we are all Scott's debris, we're so happy to be here and thrilled that you guys are here with us. And the feedback's been amazing. And we so appreciate it. We're all doing the best we can. So I just spun the wheel on YouTube today. I have no idea what the simultaneous sip is going to be. So we'll find out together. And it doesn't matter because it's Scott. Okay, so are we ready? Make sure we have the volume. Don't want to miss a word. And let's go.
It's up over 4% this morning. Good. That's what I like to say. Come on in. Grab a seat. It is good to see you. We're going to feel a little bit better today.
Oh, good.
Is everybody up for that? Feeling better today? All right, let me get your comments running here. And then we've got some stuff to do. Boom, boom, boom. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the highlight of human civilization. It's called Coffee with Scott Adams. You've never had a better time. But if you'd like to, take a chance on elevating your experience up to levels that no one can even understand with their tiny, shiny human brains. Well, if you want to do that, all you need is a cup or mug or a glass, a tankard, chalice or stein, canteen, jug or flask, vessel of any kind. Fill it with your favorite liquid. I like coffee. And join me now for the unparalleled pleasure, the dopamine hit of the day, the thing that makes everything better. It's called, that's right, the simultaneous sip. Go. Unparalleled pleasure. It's the best kind.
Best kind, that's true.
That's awesome. Thank you, Erica.
You're welcome. So again, I'm Erica, you guys, and we have Marcela, beautiful Marcela in pink today. All of her fans were waiting for her. And we have our studious, sexy Sergio, looking good, Sergio. Beanie is beanieing. And Owen Gregorian, I don't want to mention Tapper anymore when talking about you. It's not fair to you. But Marcela, we want you guys to know, has a crush on this version of Owen here, and it's hilarious. So welcome,
He's
Owen.
so gorgeous, you guys. I can't take my eyes off of him.
I love that so much. So you guys, we're going to open. Let me just check this out here. I don't know how quick I can get to me, but so last night there was what?
Erika, somebody asked Owen to change his shirt. You just wanted to say that. Mary Kay said that. So
okay.
Maybe take his shirt off. Maybe
shirt off. Maybe
his
okay.
Shirt off.
Oh my God! Here we go.
No. Okay.
Okay. So at the request of a couple of people, we just have to do a quick little bit of important housekeeping. So I hope you guys are ready for that. It's going to be informative and fun. I wrote something this morning based on some things that have been going on about whether or not Scott wanted an AI version of himself. First, what you need to know is that Scott was strategic. Okay. He knows who the four of us are on this screen right here. We all bring a different skill set, personality, vision, and he knows that all of us together really cover all the facets of who he was, what he wanted, and we're massively loyal, like most of you are. Okay, so we're never going to say something that, Scott wanted something a certain way unless we actually know. We don't speak for him, but we can speak somewhat on his behalf. And we're only going to tell you things that are true because we know they're true. We work with Scott's family. We work with Shelly, and Shelly is listening today. We talk all the time, so everything we're saying, you can also understand, is with the family's approval with Scott's estate. If you don't know Shelly, Shelly is Scott's best friend, happens to be his ex-wife, and Shelly is the person Scott trusted the most on this planet. Okay. And also his siblings. Okay. So this is like where we come from at the Scott Adams School. Okay. So that being said, people questioning whether an AI Scott is okay. My short answer is it's not. And I understand a lot of people, including myself, heard for years that Scott would say, I give my full permission and consent to people make an AI version of me. So let's remember something. Scott wasn't sick then. He didn't think he was going to die at 68 years old. I am positive he figured when he's in his 80s that maybe the AI would be where he'd want it to be. That being said, as long ago as January 2025, all the way through this past year until his last day, Scott changed his opinion about that and did not want an AI version of him. He didn't think the technology was at all where he'd want it to be. He knows it can assign opinions and ideas and that it could be dangerous. And he changed his mind also because his family didn't want that either, feeling that, it could be creepy. So I'm just going to read you a couple of quick things. Okay. This is what I wrote this morning. I'm reading it at the request. I said, "Good morning, gorgeous people," which you all are. Last night, things got a bit heated in whether or not Scott wanted to be cloned with AI. For many years, Scott thought it would be fun. He figured he'd live at least into his 80s and he'd see AI be good enough to digitally clone. By the start of 2025, Scott fully changed his opinion on this for multiple reasons. One, AI was nowhere accomplishing what Scott thought it could. And two, he realized it would feel creepy for the people who know and love him and didn't want to do that. Those two reasons alone should be enough for all of you. They are Scott Adams' wishes until the day he died, period. Those of us on Locals heard this many times in our extra hours with Scott. There is no reason to challenge this. It's not my decision. It's not what you heard 20 times 3 years ago and prior. It's not even his family's personal decision. It is what Scott Adams decided. Scott was also very clear about what would be acceptable one day and who he trusted to fulfill that. If or until you ever see it coming directly from Scott's account, please know what you are fighting for in defending rogue AI accounts is going against Scott and disrespecting his memory now that you know and read this. I'm sure none of us want to do that. Scott gave us thousands of hours of himself. We are so lucky we can watch the real Scott Adams anytime we want. We love and miss him terribly. Thank you so much for your attention to understanding. So that was my statement this morning. And I just want to follow up because another fiery person like me is Scott's brother, Dave Adams. And he wrote a statement to be read to you today. Okay. Dave reads, "My brother and I discussed an AI version of him. I said it would be awful for me to see and speak with something that sounded and appeared to be him, but had no idea who I am. Scott agreed that would be important to him as well. I suggested a code phrase like Houdini had with his wife. It would open a personal, private knowledge base of the special relationship we shared. My brother never intended, never would have approved an AI version of him that wasn't authorized by himself or his estate. For anyone who believes otherwise, I ask this question. Do you truly believe Scott didn't know a rogue AI version of himself could be used for persuasion and propaganda he would find abhorrent? Dave Adams." I will post Dave's statement for you guys after the show. So that should really clear up the questions about whether or not this is approved, wanted, or welcomed. And if anyone sees this happening, we just ask you to alert us because we just need to know, and we're not even singling out any one person. This is straight across the board. Okay. So, as President Trump would say, thank you for your attention to this matter. And I think now we're going to get into some news and have some fun. Oh, but wait, Marcela, in Scott's words, thank you for reminding me, one more clip from Scott.
So this clip for everybody is from Jay Plemons. He got it from the January 5th, 2025, episode 2711. And I'm going to play it from Scott's own words so you can see it's way before he passed away. So let me try to play it. Give me 1 second.
A little update from me. I've been telling you for years, really, that I plan to build an AI robotic clone of myself so that I could live forever. I have changed that plan. And here's why. I thought it was just the greatest idea in the world that after I passed away, there'd be like a version of me that could grow and, change with technology and be upgraded and stuff. I thought that was great. Do you know what happens when you mention that to people you know? They look at you with sadness and they go, it wouldn't be you, right? And that's the part that was invisible to me because in my planning, I'm not really there anymore. So I don't have to deal with the fact that people would find it uncomfortable because it's not me, but it's acting like me. And I can imagine that would hit that creepy zone and you'd be like, why did you even do this? Like, why did you do this? It's not you. So here's how I decided to fix that. I'm not going to create a digital clone of myself. I'm going to create a digital son. I'm going to reproduce. Because my son in AI digital robotic form is not supposed to be just like me. It's supposed to be influenced by me, maybe have a lot of my characteristics in it, but then it's supposed to find its own way. And it's supposed to turn into its own person. Yes, but when it's small, it will be very influenced by me when it's brand new. And it will be designed based on my personality, which would be like my DNA. But it would be very allowed to evolve. So by the time the robot is a senior citizen, maybe its robot body got changed a few times and software got upgraded, but by some point it won't be me. But you might be able to find some corresponding similarities. You'd say, oh yeah, the original, your organic father had a lot of the same elements going on. So that's the current plan.
Yep.
Digital son.
And you know what?
I mean,
Like Dr. Von Hardy said, we are Scott's debris. We're his son. Okay. Scott didn't have a chance to make that version of him, but he made a million of us. So fulfilled.
The other thing I want to add is that in January of 2026, a year later, he did indicate so many times to us, the beloveds, in the pre-show, post-show, and then even on his own show, that he had, I think he had changed his mind because AI is not to that level. It hallucinates. And on top of that, his family would feel really strange about seeing him in an AI form. And so he went over all of that. And many people approached him that he told me about that had created a version of him, and he always rejected that. One, because he didn't control it. And I think some of you remember that he tried to put all of his books and all of his works into AI to generate an AI of him, and it didn't work out. So some of you remember that, many don't, because it wasn't part of YouTube, it was part of locals. And I just want to remind you of that. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No,
Yeah, no,
perfect. Thank you.
I just wanted to add, I like a lot of us have had a lot of conversations with Scott, both on the stream and privately, and I certainly pay a lot of attention to everything Scott says, and I think I've seen every stream that he's put out. And to Marcela's point, he did say very clearly, I don't want this. I don't want to have an AI clone of myself. I don't think the technology is there. Things along those lines. And when we did that big tribute spaces to Scott, the one that was 6.5 hours, I think it was on January 3rd of 2026. Someone brought this up, and I gave my perspective of what I thought Scott believed. What I thought his take on it was currently, and I represented that. And I'm very careful all the time to say I don't know what Scott thinks, or I don't know what he would say, but I can give you my perspective of what I heard from him and what I think it is, and I did that. And then Scott texted me after that, and I posted that recently on my feed. You can find it there, where Scott literally said, "You are exactly right on my current AI Scott take." So if you want to know what his take was, you can go listen to what I said on that long spaces. I don't know, I haven't had time to go through it and clip it out, but it's probably a good thing to listen to anyway, just to get that experience again. And but he was very clear that he did not think the technology was there, and that he wasn't wanting anybody to create an AI clone of him. And so that has been very explicit and very clear. And I would just ask everyone to respect it. And I would also just say, like, I understand that probably everybody that's doing this, or at least most of them, are probably have good intentions, right? Like, I don't think very many people are trying to say, I'm going to go ruin Scott Adams' reputation. That would be possible with this, but I think most people are probably thinking, well, I miss Scott, and I want to have that coffee with Scott Adams every day, and I want him to talk about the news every day and give his take on things. And so I get it. I understand where you're coming from. And it is something we all miss. But I think we do need to respect Scott's wishes. We need to respect his intellectual property. His estate needs to stay in control of that, and his identity. And that's just how he wanted things to be. And I think if you have respect for Scott, you should look up to that, and respect his wishes, and not try and put out all this other stuff that might seem cool to you, but really is potentially creating a lot of pain and a lot of harm to other people. So that's
Thank
all I
you.
had to add.
Yeah, just let us know if you guys see it too. And if anyone's questioning it, you can send them the beginning of this whole episode. So it's got all the meat right there. You can just tell them, watch the first, how many minutes are we in? First 20 minutes, and you'll understand.
Erika, just
Yeah.
quickly, for me is the creepy part. That I told you about that before. That I wouldn't want to see AI on my dad or my son. That's the thing. For me, if somebody send me that, I will throw that phone away as far as possible, because I'm not blood family of Scott, but I do see him as my internet dad, and more than that, and that's for me. And so everybody, sometimes things are gonna happen, but all I want is for everybody to think about that only, that how it feels for a family member to see that. That's it. Yeah.
Of course. And understand too, Sergio, that the AI version, somebody's feeding the thoughts to it. It's not Scott. You know what I mean? So, technically, like what Dave said in his last sentence, that it could be used for propaganda. I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely it could be. So,
that's
maybe
the worst.
you start off warm, like, oh, isn't this
Mhm.
fun? And it's telling
Mhm.
jokes. And then it starts to give opinions about this and that. Next thing you know, it's talking about politics and war and conflicts. And now
Wow.
you're literally getting
Mhm.
brainwashed by this Scott Adams AI, forgetting that someone's controlling the puppet. It's very dangerous. There is a
That would be
slippery slope.
the last thing that Scott will love to see. He will be so
Yeah.
furious to see that.
Yeah.
So thank you, thank you.
And especially with such a brilliant mind, right? Nobody can duplicate the way Scott thought and the way he could, you know, give us a story and another perspective. So why, go make an AI of somebody else, like a non-existing person, create one if you want to do that. But to take one of our most brilliant, thoughtful, caring, useful minds and think like, oh, now I'll be its puppet master is just beyond. It's just beyond. And I was a little emotional last night. And I might have booted some people out of the Coffee with Scott Adams community. I'm sorry, but that's where we're at.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would just say, I
news.
mean, I did persuade some people, I think, with some of the things I posted. So I appreciate everyone
Same.
having an open mind about this and listening to Scott's words and what he wanted. And I think a lot of people probably just missed that and remembered what he said earlier. So I think a lot of this was innocent, but I think at this point, it's all very clear what Scott wanted.
Thank you for saying that, Owen, too, because yes, I would like to say it is a superpower. And a lot of you displayed it last night to see new information and then say, oh, I was wrong, or I didn't realize that. Oh, I changed my mind. You're right, whatever. You people, amazing. I was like, yes, yes, you get it. To the other people that just insisted and thought that they, should keep the debate going and blah, blah, blah. You at some point you just have to say, okay, the people that are closest to Scott are telling me something that I disagree with. What should I do at this point? I mean, you just have to trust the people that were closest to Scott. That's all. It's easy. It's his wishes. All right. I think we
Right.
get it. All right, guys,
Yeah.
drop emoji in the chats, you guys, if you fully understand this, because it was so distressing for me personally last night. I was so upset. But I think, drop an emoji, let me know. So, and if you have any other
All right.
questions about it, let us know now.
I wonder if there's any battery news today. Oh, look, there is.
Oh,
There's a story about sulfur accelerating the ion flow for lithium batteries or solid state batteries. It looks like the intent there is they can replace all the flammable components to make it safer and make it more stable and um, overcome some of the speed of how quickly lithium ions can move through solids. So it's improving performance too. The quote from the story is, "Our goal is to replace all those flammable components so the battery becomes much safer by removing the liquid electrolyte and redesigning the solid materials inside the battery. We can reduce the risk of overheating, short circuits, and fires while also improving performance." Um, and it's using a sulfur zirconium interaction. And they're starting out with the little coin cell prototypes, but it does look like it has potential to be used in EVs and grid storage and electronics. So it could be a significant thing. And I think, as I recall, Scott would often say, this one might not turn into anything, but there's a new story every day, and some of these are going to be big. And I'm still holding on to Scott's prediction that he said 2026 is kind of going to be the year of the battery, and it's going to change everything. What do you think, Erica?
I mean, the year of the battery, I'll take it over the last year. I don't know. I mean, I say maybe, just like Scott would say. And I think that if battery technology doesn't improve, we're going to hit a wall. So um, I want to be hopeful about any changes. And also, I'm like, can we find a new way to make a battery would be good too. I know nothing about batteries, you guys, except like, I put them in things to turn them on. Oh, I can hear the jokes. But anyway, that's all I want to say on batteries. Thank you. Good night.
Yeah. Well, I do think there's a whole lot of research going into this, and the latest stories include how we're also going after the rare earth minerals to get rid of China's monopoly on that and reduce the risk of the supply chain around that. So I see a lot of progress there, and I think it's going to probably drive even more research to come up with, new designs, new methods for creating it. And so it does seem like it's all moving in that direction, but we'll have to watch and see how it plays out. All right. Well, in psychology news, there was an experiment with 1,600 volunteers linking social exclusion to higher interest in gossip. So apparently, if you're socially excluded, you get more interested in celebrity gossip, and it helps people feel more connected to higher status figures. One interesting point I saw was that the socially excluded chose gossip 39% of the time versus 23% of those feeling unintelligent. So it seemed like being socially excluded was a much bigger driver than just being a dumb person. And the quote from the story is that he kind of explains, like, think back to our reptilian brain and rewind maybe 2,000 years. Your chances of survival are higher if you're closer to the chief, if you're higher up in the hierarchy. So how does our brain know if you're closer to somebody higher up? One of the ways in which it figures this out is by asking itself, do I know much about the chief? So apparently, if you're feeling socially excluded, you can fill that gap with gossip. I think that explains
Or
a lot of the
don't.
gossip we see.
Yeah, that's gossip is poison, just like alcohol.
How does gossip make them feel included?
I don't know if it does make them feel included. I think it makes them feel more connected to those celebrities, which are kind of like authority figures. So it might just make them feel higher status, if they can feel like they know more about these celebrities than other people, that they might feel better informed and, more authoritative somehow.
Maybe they don't
Um,
have that banter with friends, so they're like, oh, I have this banter, I don't have a friend group to banter with, so I can talk about celebrity gossip. Maybe I'm speculating their lives don't feel interesting, or maybe they're not interesting. I don't know, but the lives of other people we are consumed by.
I like that
yeah.
take.
Do you
Tell
That's
us,
a
agree?
very
Sergio.
good take. Well, I think I like that take you had about people not having somebody to care for, and it's like a cat. You get a cat, you get a celebrity, and you care for them, and and that's why any celebrity, it doesn't matter how terrible we think they are, there's people out there that love them very much, right? That they really care for them and they watch everything they do and it feels good. Like I watch my cat right here and like I want to, I look him up on my Blink, right? So if you don't have a cat, yeah, get a celebrity, I guess. I like that.
Well, you could care for this celebrity or you could hate that celebrity, and the gossip can go either way.
Trump.
So,
Trump
yeah,
is a celebrity to
Oh,
punch,
that's a
right?
good point.
Gets you going, it gives you energy, it gets you on the streets. All those protests are great because everybody's out there getting sun, exercise, getting the energy out and, expressing themselves in
yeah.
America. As long as they don't, block the cops and respect, people, it's fine. But the law, nobody's above the law, and then we're gonna be fine. So
I wonder if we'll
yeah.
have any protester marriages come out of this, like people who met, throwing bricks at ice and stuff, and they
Oh
fall in
my
love,
God.
and we could have a new reality show.
There was in Portland, I Nick Sorter, is that
Nick
how it's pronounced?
Sorter.
Sorter. He was around these protesters, and some of them had gotten. He interviewed a couple, and they were like, "We met last time we protested," and and
Well,
he just let them on to speak, and they were just so. Oh my God, they're so woke, but
I
it's
That's
mean, if
bliss.
you're single,
wild, wild
if you're
stuff.
single and don't have a job and you like hate Trump, man, it's like an amazing club of people that they all hate the same person, right? It's amazing. I mean, I wish I had somebody like that I could go and meet somebody like that. That's why I want those SCAT locals meetups that
Yeah.
Jimmy's making, because then
Oh
you have
yeah.
something in common. like, oh yeah, we all love Scott. Let's have some coffee, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's been hundreds of stories about the importance of having a lot of close social connections and how it makes you healthier to have friends. So I think it's just a basic human need. And one of the other parts that I would add here is that they point out in the story that marketers could use this for isolated groups. So it's also something to watch out for. If you're feeling isolated, they may be able to take
Get
advantage
targeted.
of that by using gossip to attract you and to market things to you and sell things to you. And so it's something to watch out for from a persuasion perspective. I think it also ties right into Cialdini's book Influence, where he points out that authority figures are a very effective tool for persuasion and that they don't have to be real authority figures. Like what the primary example he uses, some, I forget which one, but some a doctor, like actor that played a doctor, and then they would
Oh,
use him on commercials in his doctor's coat to sell stuff, and people would respond to it. It was very effective, and even though everyone knew he wasn't a real doctor, they still gave him that authority just by watching him in the lab coat and pretending essentially that he was a doctor. And
right.
so it is something to watch out for if you're trying to just protect yourself from being persuaded in a nefarious way. Or I guess if you want to persuade people, you can maybe find ways to use this to your advantage. But
You
it
can get
is
a
one
lab
of the
coat
core principles. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I can put my avatar in a lab coat.
on. Do not put a lab coat. Marcella
Oh
will
no. Don't do
All
it.
right.
Don't
Well,
do it.
that's interesting. Like, tell me something I need to know when I go out into the world today and somebody brings up the news. What do I need to know?
You want to go into the political news? Is that what you're saying? Because I had a
I
good one for
don't
the ladies coming up next. It was
Oh,
how
ladies. Oh,
estrogen can make stress memories worse.
oh,
So
thanks.
high estrogen in the brain worsens long-term memory issues from repeated stress. It may explain higher PTSD risk in women. Multiple stresses cause fear and memory problems that could last weeks. A single stress did not, but high estrogen phases amplified the effects. And so that I think that explains why there's so many crazy women out there, frankly, that
Oh,
they
that's thank you.
exaggerate
Yeah.
what's bad and get too stressed out over things. And I think some of it's right back to their hormones. That if they're in a high estrogen phase, what you're seeing in their behavior might actually just be the estrogen.
All jokes aside, I'm sure it does contribute a lot because I'll tell you what, you men, you just don't know, but certain times you feel like you could just commit Harry Carey. Like you are just like, I know I'm insane right now. I know what I'm saying I don't mean, but I can't stop it from coming out. Like it's just like,
Mhm.
bleh. So if you've never experienced that, you are lucky. Um, but also, I think there could be definitely a correlation to that for sure.
Mhm.
I think we need a reframe for that before everybody goes crazy later today.
Do it,
Because
Sergio.
all,
Reframe it.
all, the, all that all that medical talk, the estrogen and going crazy is, if I was like one of them, it was already in my head already. So we need to come up with a good reframe right now to escape from that escape. And I don't have a good one, so I'm just trying to
Any
You're
trying
leaving
to
us
ideas?
approach
hanging,
that.
Sergio. You're leaving us hanging.
I'll leave you
I don't
hanging.
know.
Maybe
How about
check
how
on my
about
feed
just,
later.
I don't know if it's a reframe, but maybe you could just say if you're feeling stressed out, it might just be a good idea to step away from the phone and not expose yourself to multiple stresses because it could have bad impact on you. I don't know.
Turn off
I'm sure
Twitter for sure.
Scott can probably come up with a better way of phrasing that. But if you could get away from the phone, maybe go see some nature,
Go watch
you might just
Melania.
feel a lot better. Yeah, go watch Melania. Apparently, that's a big hit in the theaters. That was one of the stories I posted a few days ago, that it's like breaking records. I think it's the most watched documentary in something like 14 years.
Wow, good for her.
Um, so it's doing great in the theaters and doing a lot better than people expected. I think all the leftists were predicting it was going to crash and burn, and they were 100% wrong.
I haven't been to
Um,
the movies since Maverick, and the only reason I want to go back is for Melania. That's it.
Aw.
Ooh,
Yeah.
all right.
secret
Well,
crush.
if you want to get into the political news, we have more going on with Russia and Ukraine, although it's really more the same. I think they're doing trilateral peace talks, so that's with Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. At the same time, Russia has picked up their attacks again, so there's power outages everywhere, and um, they, had an attack on Tuesday that was the biggest since the beginning of the year, with 70 missiles and hundreds of drones attacking their energy. So it does seem like a drone and an energy war still, which Scott was predicting for a long time would happen someday, and here we are. But it does seem like they're going after the grid, they're going after the energy. I'm sure that's partly tied into the drones, because if you don't have electricity, you can't charge your drones. But I think it's also impacting a lot of people. So there's a lot of people that are really cold right now. They don't have power. So I do feel for the people in Ukraine, especially. Um, Ukrainians are calling it a winter genocide. It's like negative 20 degrees Celsius in Kiev. So that's a
Oof.
bad situation. Um, but they are around the negotiating table for another round of trilateral talks. They seem to be thinking it's constructive, but I think they still have a lot to work out. I think most of it still goes around the territory and whether Zelensky will give up that eastern part. Um, Zelensky said either Russia now believes that there are 4 incomplete days in a week instead of 7, or they are really betting only on war and waiting for the coldest days of the winter. We believe this Russian strike clearly violates from what the American side discussed, and there must be consequences. So it doesn't seem like we're at the end at this point.
No.
Um, but they are working on it. So hopefully we'll see some progress there.
Hey,
Um,
Owen, is the EU more or less dependent of energy from Russia right now?
well, I think they're probably a little less than they have been, or at least they're moving in that direction. But I think they're in a bad situation because like Germany, for example, destroyed their nuclear plants. Like they didn't just shut them down; they actually blew up the cooling towers. So they have a huge gap in energy capacity. And I think the UK, is a little further away from there, but they went with their whole net zero thing, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot energy wise. I think they're one of the most expensive countries for electricity now. It's something like 37 cents a kilowatt hour, which is apparently really high. So I think the EU and Europe are, you know, needing to fill that gap somehow. And so I think they are turning to the United States. That's the pattern of the stories that I've seen, is that they're bringing over a bunch of liquefied natural gas and things, and they're trying to get it from the United States so they don't have to get it from Russia. But that's not necessarily a practical or sustainable solution, because Russia has this pipeline, even though they did destroy the Nord Stream pipeline, but they have some pipelines going into Europe. So it's a lot cheaper to get the energy that way than it is to ship it on tankers and do all the conversions for liquefied natural gas. So it's a big issue, and I'm hoping we can just get it
So,
resolved where it's not such a big issue. But right now, I think we are still in the mode of trying to get Europe to wean themselves off of Russian energy. Some parts of Europe are pushing back on that because they're so dependent on it, but they're trying to cut that so that they aren't funding the war effort.
so going to war with a country that you depend on energy is not a good idea.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
But
man,
well, I mean,
yeah,
in their defense, they didn't choose this. I mean, Russia
no, yeah,
Russia
but I mean,
initiated it, so
mhm. Yeah, but I mean, if a preparation for it, don't start cutting off all your energy supplies, right? Like you're like
yeah.
already cutting you off completely.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's a complicated situation, just for the same reason that we're kind of enemies with China, but we do so much trade with them and we depend on them for so much that we have to be very careful about that. And I'm sure that is part of Trump's calculus when he decides what to do about China. I mean, he's been saying a lot of positive things about China lately. He had this big long conversation with Xi recently and says there's going to be all this great stuff coming out of that. And at the same time, we just talked with Steve about how we need to get rid of all these Chinese students in our universities that are stealing all our information and all our ideas. And in my own mind, at least, I just think, okay, Trump is considering all this stuff, right? He can't be too hard on China too fast. Like, I do think he's moving in the direction of reducing our dependency on the rare earth minerals and trying to get manufacturing back to the United States. So I think he's moving in the right direction with things, but I think he realizes that it can't happen overnight and that we still are dependent on them for a lot of things. And so we can't just say, okay, we're cutting you off completely, because then they'll cut us off completely and that would hurt everybody and it would be horrible. So I think I do have some understanding of what might have led Trump to say, I want to make things better in our relations with China. at least in the short term. But I do hope that we keep reducing our dependency on them so that we don't have that as a major concern. And I think that trend will continue.
I want to give a quick shout out to the people on YouTube. I'm chatting with them. We are not, we listen, we love you guys, honestly. I'm not good yet at like doing both, but we are watching you. And look at Annie, you're kicking butt over here. I just wanted to give them a quick shout out, you guys. So we love the YouTube people. Thank you for being here. Yeah, we see Sergio just said, we see you. Shout out to YouTube. Let's go. Okay, I'm back.
Yeah. So moving on to immigration, we have a story that New York County walked back their sanctuary proposal after they got some backlash. Rockland County tabled a Democratic Safety and Dignity for All Act that was going to limit ICE cooperation. Um, and looks like they got a lot of backlash and they decided to just put that aside. So that's a good sign. Looks like maybe at least parts of New York are going to be cooperating. At the same time, we have Minneapolis. There's apparently a flyer that everybody's posting, or some people are posting around there, that's telling everybody to sabotage ICE and telling them they can get away with it. They're telling them to over tighten lug nuts and strip spark plugs and lose papers and give them the wrong food and give them decaf coffee, which is probably the worst. And they're claiming they'll get away with it. So that's probably the worst part, is they're promising that you won't have any consequences if you do all these bad things. And clearly that's not true. Clearly they're setting these people up to potentially have legal consequences and criminal charges. So a very bad idea, but it seems like a big propaganda effort um, is underway. So be watching out for that. They apparently attacked a local Fox journalist and destroyed their equipment, and there were riot police standing like 5 feet away. So that's pretty outrageous. I'm not really sure why the riot police didn't step in and protect the reporter, but they cut his cables and were, just destroying all of his equipment. So um, yeah, there were a bunch of officers just standing right nearby that just apparently didn't do anything. And then
I don't
another
get it.
piece on this, I would say, is like this adds some context to what's going on in Minneapolis. That Tom Homan announced that he's taking 700 agents away from Minnesota, which by itself, if you take away all the context, sounds horrible. Sounds like they gave up, right? And that's how the leftists are trying to spin it. Like, hey, we won, they lost, we got them out. But Tom Homan clarified that the reason he's doing that is because they are cooperating now. That a lot of the Minneapolis essentially agreed that they're going to work with ICE and they're going to cooperate on the ICE detainers, and they're going to have a lot more local coordination. So they don't need as many officers because the local authorities are going to cooperate. So I think that's one of these two movies on one screen things that, depending on which
Yeah.
side of the story you pay attention to, you can say, oh, Trump lost or Trump won. And certainly I have my point of view that I think, Tom Homan isn't the type that would just back down and retreat. So I pretty much put my credibility on that side, but I can understand how they would just cherry pick the information on the other side and say, oh, look, we got rid of him.
Hmm.
So those are my stories on immigration. What do you guys think?
Are they really cooperating, or are we
I mean, I guess
saving?
we'll have to see. I think my guess is that the news story is probably that they made some agreement to cooperate, and we'll have to
Right.
see if they follow through with it. So,
Yeah, I don't feel optimistic, but I would love to be wrong.
On those 700, the retreat, right? That you're saying that they're trying to frame as a victory for them. That's a great thing, actually. That's an awesome thing because that's Sun Tzu's way of giving the enemy a way out, and in a way they're enjoying this, and it's okay to have a little victory. I like that Trump is being uh, flexible with this, always looking at all the variables and making adjustments and, applying too much force, less force. It's interesting to see that. And they don't have the visuals we don't have any visuals of those 700, cops moving away, right? We have a lot of visuals of people getting, a lot of aggression from both sides, right? And that's been helping them a lot. So that's been creating a lot of good photo opportunities, photo shots for the left, right? So it's good that they're taking that away, and I think might be a win-win in some cases. I don't know.
A
Yeah.
visual would
Okay.
be nice.
Hmm. All right.
But
Well,
I think we just have to see it happen. We just need to see things calm down and some reaction and see that they're cooperating. But nothing says if it doesn't work out that those 700 don't come right back. So I guess it's up to them at this point.
and I would also just broaden the conversation just to look at the whole country. Like I've seen other statements that Trump said we're not going to go into these sanctuary cities and you know help people unless they ask for it, kind of thing. And I think to me that makes sense from a broader picture perspective because it's like if you got a bunch of illegal immigrants in Florida or Texas where we can make a big impact really quickly because everyone's going to cooperate and it's going to be really easy and there's not going to be all these conflicts and there, there might be some protests but it's not going to be as bad because the authorities are cooperating, then it makes sense to put your resources there, make the biggest impact. And unfortunately, that means these sanctuary cities are going to be crap holes for a while because they're not going to get the assistance that they need and they might need it more than other places. But, to me, it's like if there are other targets, if there are other places that are a lot easier that won't have these same conflicts, then it would make sense to me to say, let's start there. Let's clean up Tennessee and Texas and Florida and other places. And there
Sure.
was a story recently that they just arrested something like 150 criminal illegal immigrants over the last couple of days. So it looks like that is happening. And so if we can make an impact on the overall country, it'll make it better for everybody and just better for the country overall. And unfortunately, maybe the Democrat cities will have the worst of it. And my hope would be that they'd see that and they'd see the positive differences being made elsewhere, and maybe the people will
Yeah.
turn on it and say, you know what, I really do want this because the polls really show that there is strong support for getting rid of the illegal immigrants, and that's been pretty clear and pretty consistent throughout all this. And so these protesters are making a lot of noise, but they're really in the minority. And so most people do want this to happen, and I think the more attention we put on it, maybe the better. There was another story I posted today about the midterms, where it was kind of saying, um, you know, Democrats are in a really good spot for midterms because they can harp on affordability all day long, and everybody is going to resonate with that because there has been so much inflation, and they're not going to connect the dots that it all came from Biden. They're blaming Trump for that, and that seemed to have been working. And so they could just keep doing that, right? That would work for them. But they're suddenly, because of their TDS, having to do the opposite of everything Trump does, and they're making immigration a huge issue. And that's one of these 80-20 type issues where Trump's on the right side of it. And so he's predicting, because the Democrats are so stupid, they're actually going to make this midterm be a referendum on immigration. And that's a path for Republicans to win. So it may actually be better for our side to hype up the immigration issue, to keep that in the news and to not talk as much about affordability, because people do have limited mental shelf space, and the more you talk
Mhm.
about immigration, the less people are thinking about affordability. And so I think that could be a winning formula for the Republicans in the
Hmm.
midterms.
Interesting. That's an interesting reframe. I figured it's just kind of funny. I think your name was Brody. You went by too fast, but I kind of agree with you that I think the Minnesota like that the riots and the protests are a knee-jerk reaction to the fraud found there, because we know that these protests are paid for and spun up by corporations that are funding it. But it is funny when you think, I was thinking today, like, oh, what happened to like the outrage over the ballroom and the outrage over the Kennedy Performing Arts Center. I forget what it's called. But like all those things that were like the end of the world and whatever, it's like we just keep moving on and moving on and moving on. And so I think that's a good reframe, Owen, like the distraction. So maybe that's the way to go. So to stop talking about affordability because you can't explain that this was a Biden issue. You also, people have to understand too, like I have very differing feelings about the illegal immigration and what's happening and what we're seeing. A lot of nuance for me. But also, if all those people didn't pour over the border, this wouldn't be happening. Like we kind of were dealing with the illegal immigration situation we already had, like when Trump's first term, and then the floodgates were open, and now it's just like we have to do something. So it's like, it looks like it's, Trump is creating this problem. No, but we can never get that messaging across. I wish there was a way, but it's the TDS. I'm just like kind of talking out loud to you guys, like without actually a clear
Something.
thought. But it's like the
Trump is fixing
TDS.
it. Trump
Yeah.
is fixing the problem that the Biden administration created, dementia Biden, opening the borders to everybody to come in. And not only that, we know from intelligence that Venezuela and many other countries were sending their criminals to here. So many people have died. And you are correct, Erica. Like, this is why it seems where affordability is an issue. This is also why immigration is an issue, because for these many years, for the Biden administration, there was nothing. It was like auto pen administration. Basically,
Mhm.
they checked out and let barbarians in. Everything was anarchy in a way.
Now, can
Um,
someone help me understand this? This is what I always thought. When you're when you're looking for, what do we call it? Asylum. Aren't you supposed to go to the country next to you? Like
Yes.
you, like if, okay. So when people are like, well, there's asylum seekers, I'm like, well, they should only be from Mexico and Canada then.
Yep.
Like that's the only places we should have asylum seekers. You don't
Mhm.
skip over 100 countries and fly across oceans and they're like, hey, I'm just like, when did that law change?
the laws are in the books. The thing is, nobody enforces them. And that's kind of what it went out. The Biden administration, through the immigration administrative judges, they basically set the tone of, oh, we're going to look the other way. We're going to allow it. And I
It's
see
not
the
even just looking
issue.
the other way.
Yeah.
I would say it's worse than that. They were encouraging it, they were enabling it, they were funding it.
They
The whole
needed
Daring
voters,
app
right?
thing and all, like they were giving people money, they were giving them transportation, they were giving them food, they were giving them all sorts of things to allow them to have these caravans going through Mexico to get to the United States. It wasn't just, oh, we're going to look the other way. It was, hey, come this way, I'll help you. And so that it was very intentional.
Yeah.
When I saw it in court, I can't really talk about it because at that time I was working for the court. There was pushback, but a lot of the times when you make a statement on a document under penalty of perjury, you would have to take whatever statement they made under asylum statements that was true, but there's no way to prove it. Like if I say, uh, I am being, the gangs are trying to kill me and I cannot come back to my country. And then if evidence was to be entered, there wouldn't be any evidence and you would have to kind of go with it. And so there's a lot of room for fraud, which we've seen throughout. Fraud is like everywhere. And that's one of the things. And it kind of like fraud, it's this, the sign is destiny. They made it so that fraud could prevail, it could keep going because it also helps them. And help me out here. Like it helps them with creating voters and
Yeah.
so many other things.
Right. I don't know. Why do I feel like we're never going to fix this stuff? I mean, because we're not. That's why.
Well, no, we've made a lot of progress. Come
We
on.
made a
I
lot of
mean,
progress.
I think
Good progress. I need to feel better. I need to feel better.
We
Trump has
did.
crushed this. I mean, the illegal immigration is basically zero at this point, and we're deporting millions of people. So it's a huge victory, and it's a great story for Trump to tell for the midterms. It looks like he is mostly harping on affordability at this point, and I don't know if that's the right answer or not, just like we were saying earlier, but I do think that, he has a good story to tell on immigration, and, I'm just hoping it continues. I mean, I think even if Democrats do take control of the House, it probably will still not allow more illegal immigration to happen.
Right.
The policies are there, the changes have been made to clamp down on the border, and we'll have to see what happens with like ICE funding and DHS funding and stuff. But I think apart from that, that stuff's going to continue because it's all already in place. All the systems are there. It's just going to keep going. So I think that's most likely going to continue. And I think we're going to see more and more progress there that'll keep making housing cheaper. It'll keep making um, our schools not be overloaded, our medical systems not be overloaded, and it'll save us a bunch of money. And so I think it'll even help with a lot of the affordability stuff. So it even ties into that too.
Man of Steel, you're reminding me, self-deporting was great. I wonder if there's like a new incentive that they can offer for that,
They were
because
giving
They
that's
did.
the
I
best.
like
think they did
money.
raise
They
the
were giving
amount.
money.
I think they raised the amount. Like I think it might have
1,000?
been 1,000 and it was raised to 2,000 or from 2,000 to 3,000 or something. But I believe they raised the amount for self deportation that they'll pay you to leave. So they're continuing to push that because it's been so effective.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to mention is that there are people that are coming because they need that where they're coming from is so bad. But one of the key things that Trump has done is work with Central America and South America to make it more prosperous, so that people don't have to come here. And I think we're seeing that. We're seeing that in Argentina, El Salvador. We're seeing that. Like I'm thinking of moving back to El Salvador. So
Girl, no. You got to move to New Jersey if you're moving. Listen,
so
you
yeah,
one crazy state. This is another one. Try it.
yeah. So by the way, I didn't have power a few hours ago, and I didn't have power yesterday. And I live in California, and somebody is telling me maybe move to New Jersey. I don't know. And but basically, having the countries prosper like Argentina is, like Chile is going to be, in El Salvador, you see that difference in prospering. So, and I know there are some locals that are watching from El Salvador. Anyways, so it does help in the fact to limit the immigration because they don't no longer have to be here.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe we'll end with one more, a fun one. The View hosts are mentioned in the Epstein files. So
No.
Whoopi Goldberg, they've been talking about all this Epstein drops and calling for it to be released, and now their names are in it. So apparently, Whoopi Goldberg, according to the emails, allegedly, um, said they asked Epstein to use his plane to get to Monaco. Looks like John Lennon's charity was paying for it, and they didn't want to do a charter, so they were looking for private planes. And there were, I think, dozens, like 21 times Whoopi Goldberg's name was mentioned. Farrah Griffin was
Get
mentioned
out.
20 times. Joy Behar was mentioned 3 times. Anna Navarro was
Well,
mentioned
well,
twice.
well.
So, we'll have to see if
Wait,
they
wait, wait,
mention
wait,
that on the
wait.
show
What
today.
year? What year? Do we know the year?
Uh, I don't have the details. You could look at my article and see what details it includes. It was out in the Gateway Pundit. Mike LaChance was writing about it. But and I think he posted a link or to an X post or something that called out the research that was done. But they searched for these names. Sometimes they use their real names because like Whoopi Goldberg isn't her real name, and I think some of the other ones have changed their names or had maiden names. But they found all these things where they were referenced in Epstein emails.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a
I do
beautiful
want to
note to end on.
I do want to note that this is what the Gateway Pundit said, and that we're not certain. There's no allegations that they were part of the island or anything like that. They were just using the plane. Just want
No, but that's true for most of the people that are implicated. I mean, yes, there are some that are having real problems right now, and I think some people have already lost their jobs or gotten kicked out of the royal whatever. um, but I think there's a lot of people I think that are being drug through the mud just because their name was in an email or
Oh
because
yeah,
they had some interaction with them. And I think a lot of that is innocent. I would put Jason Calzanas in that category where it's like he
yeah,
didn't do anything wrong as far as I can tell. All the
yeah.
references were just that he met with him once to try and raise money for the Silicon Valley Reporter, which doesn't sound like that's anything bad, and that apparently Epstein told him you should think bigger and asked to get introduced to a couple people, and Jason made those introductions. And I'm pretty sure that was all before all these allegations. So like, that I don't think Jason should be drugged through the mud at all. I think he probably had no idea about all this stuff at that point, and he was just doing what people normally do in those situations, trying to fundraise for their cause. And so I think a lot of these people are, not guilty of anything bad, but at the same time, these are the people on the View that are saying, "Oh, look, Trump's in the files, Trump's there, Elon's there." They're making a big deal out of just showing up in these emails, and here they are. They're in there too.
There
So
they are. All right, you
Eh,
guys, you know
no, can
me.
I?
Oh,
An
Sergio, you know what?
Epstein.
I'm going to, okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah, just quickly on the Epstein, I wanted to know what was it that made him persuasive? Because Scott used to talk about this guy must be so persuasive because he has done so much, and
Blackmail.
huh? Well,
Blackmail.
okay, yeah, but I mean, but also okay, so it was always blackmail. Everybody that was like around them was blackmail.
I'll
Dang.
give you the
Okay,
I'll
thank you.
give you the short synopsis of what I heard from Mike Benz, because he just talked about this on Joe Rogan. So you can go look for the longer version there. But I think what he said is, number one, the way he got started was that when he went to Bear Stearns, he married the boss's daughter. So he rose up the ranks really quickly out of nepotism and got
Did
to a
he
point where he had a
blackmail the
lot more
father?
power. No,
Did he
no,
blackmail
but
somebody?
he just that's how he got started, right? Like
He
people
married
ask,
influence.
how did people would ask, like, how did he become so powerful so fast, or how did he become a partner in Bear Stearns in like almost no time? And that's the answer to that question. Okay, so that doesn't have anything to do with persuasion on his part, but he got a lot of power that way. And then apparently he was involved, I think through Bear Stearns, with all these banking things going on with the CIA. So there was all this banking transactions going on where the CIA had to fund something illicit, and so they had to transfer and launder a bunch of money, and the government made some kind of deal with all these different banks to say you're going to look the other way while this money's being transferred, so that we can get it up to the mujahideen or whatever they're called, or whatever, guerrillas or terrorists or whatever they were funding. And these banks facilitated all these transactions, and so I think he gained a lot of influence and power that way, and met a lot of powerful people, and so he gained a lot of influence through there. And then I think from there, Mike Benz's theory is it's not really blackmail, it's bribery. It's that when you get into these circles, these billionaires want things, right? And money doesn't necessarily mean that much to them because they've got plenty of money, but they might not have access to an 18-year-old girl or a prostitute, or something that they might want. And so I think in many cases they would make these deals that might be tied to the CIA or other things, but they would influence people by saying, hey, come to my party, come be with this girl, I can arrange this for you. And so I think a lot of it, in Mike Benz's opinion, was bribery as opposed to blackmail. So
And I'm
that's
sticking
how I
with
think.
blackmail.
Yeah, well, I
Thank
mean,
you. Thank you, Owen.
I think
Thank
Mike
you,
Benz
Edgar.
did allow that there might have been some at least implicit blackmail, like, "Hey, I've got this information about you," and so it would
I happen to know
be
you're looking for a
kind of,
young lady, like done.
yeah, right, like
Yeah.
hanging over their heads. I know you cheated on your wife, or and it does seem like there was a lot of video evidence. I'm not sure what Epstein's role was that, and exactly. It could have been that the CIA planted all these things, but I do think some of that was going on where they were collecting this blackmail information. But he made the point, Mike Benz did, that like if you ever used that blackmail information, like actually blackmailed somebody, then you would lose access to everybody from that point on, because everybody'd find out about it and no one would want to do business with you anymore. So his argument is he may never have actually literally blackmailed somebody, but there may have been a lot of blackmail material that he could have used and that people were aware of, so that they knew that if they ever crossed Epstein, that they would potentially be in a lot of trouble.
Well, we look forward to the release of many more files. Andy Wang, thank you for understanding my pain. I appreciate you. You guys, we're going to do a final closing sip to our beloved Scott. Please go out there, be useful today. We'll be back tomorrow, perhaps with a guest. I'm just seeing. And I love you guys. I love everybody. And I love this group. I love everybody in all the chats. I'm feeling better today, having spent time with you guys. Owen, thanks for trying to always talk me off a ledge. I always appreciate that. So, everybody, we will see you tomorrow morning. And a toast to Scott and to Shelley. Love you guys. To Scott.
To Scott, see you tomorrow.